Welcome to Enterprise Radio, the signature show of EPN, the Entrepreneur Podcast Network, your channel for exclusive interviews with entrepreneurs, small business owners, and some of the world's top executives who share business strategies and insights that can all help you build your business, leading to your business success. And now, broadcasting from anywhere between Brazil, South America to Los Angeles, California, it is your host, Eric Dye.
This is Eric Dye, and once again, welcome to Enterprise Radio, a part of EPN, the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Today we are speaking with Linda F. Williams, the founder of Immutable Dynamic Coaching Services, a personal and professional life coaching service. Ms. Williams, welcome to Enterprise Radio.
Well, how are you today? I'm just so pleased to be here. I'm very honored to be a guest on your show.
Well, it is our honor to have you with us, and thanks for joining us, taking out a moment to be with us. So to kick things off, Linda, you are an award-winning change agent. Get into your background and help us be more familiar with you and what you're all about.
Well, Eric, I have 10 years in labor management relations. I've been 36 years in federal public administration. I have a degree in organizational leadership. I'm also a behaviorist and trained psychotherapist with a master's in social work and certification in substance abuse counseling. So adding my certifications in personal and professional life coaching makes for quite a combination for facilitating empowerment and change in all conceivable levels.
Very impressive resume there. And why is employee engagement such a challenge for leaders today?
Well, Eric, I recently read a Harvard Business Review article by Sean Garber, and Garber acknowledges the elusive nature of even defining and measuring employee engagement. Now, employee engagement is defined as everything from discretionary effort to something as complicated as complex, nomological network encompassing blah, blah, blah. It really should not be that complicated. And when I read that, I kind of thought, whoa there, buddy, hit the brakes. What? Let me look that up. And this is really not quantum physics. So we have to really return to a paradigm shift where we're not managing human resources, but we're more dealing with people as the human beings as that they are. So I think that our basic issue here is that many of us are using strategic management, economic theory, trying to measure an intangible. So it gets down to this simple thing. We're human beings and not robots.
And well said there. Now, how does this impact organizational culture?
Well, culture is the environment in which your strategy or your brand thrives or dies a slow death. Peter Drucker coined the phrase, culture eats strategy for breakfast, for instance. So culture is integral to organizational success. It's one of the most important drivers to set or adjust in order to push long-term sustainable outcomes. That said, long-term success is dependent upon a culture that is nurtured and alive. It depends on the human beings who make up the culture. Now, note I use the word culture, nurture here. You do not nurture robots, as I said. A comprehensive strategic plan must necessarily include cultural change. I don't think anybody would argue that. However, you cannot develop or measure employee engagement by strategic management methodology.
Today we're joined by Linda F. Williams, the founder of Immutable Dynamic Coaching Services, a personal and professional life coaching service here on Enterprise Radio, a part of the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. You can also follow the show on Twitter at ePodcast Network, and we're also streaming on demand 24/7 on TuneIn Radio and the TuneIn Radio app for your listening convenience. Linda, given that, what's the secret to sustainable outcomes with respect to employee engagement?
Well, that's a good question, Eric, and I'm glad you asked it. Fostering employee engagement that'll stand the test of competing deadlines, new initiatives, and business as usual takes a paradigm shift from managing human resources to influencing human beings. I mean, we've all been there. The newest trend in training comes. It's just a newly vended version of the same old thing, and everybody's raring to go coming out of the gate. But soon, all of the priorities, all of the missions, everything kind of gets in the way of that enthusiasm, and then we fall back to the status quo. So what we have to really do is to engage human beings at the human level. Authentic leadership really comes from the heart. You can't really train someone to do that, and it's all about personal responsibility, where whatever you've been through in life might block how you see the world around you, and really getting down and dirty where you're just really looking at people not as just the team, not as just subordinates, as we call it in the federal government, but you're really understanding that their whole lives make up who they are. They don't leave that at the door when they come to work every day. And many times we don't see what's driving what we might see as lack of performance or lack of interest.
Tell us, what are your top 5 keys of employee engagement for the listeners today?
Okay, rule 1, critical reflection. Now, there's no real definition of that term out there. But what it boils down to is we always talk about thinking outside the box. Critical reflection would have you asking, what is the box? And is the box as defined accurately described? So it's a combination of self-awareness, the critical thinking, metacognition, where you can understand where people's mental blocks are and how, as a leader, to help them overcome it. And to a great extent, it means coming down from our ivory towers long enough to consider the perspectives of others. Rule 2, stop with the macro dynamics. Stop using economic theory to measure or change human behavior. We're not measuring the behavior of markets, businesses, or the general economy. We should be focusing on the human. Rule 3, focus on influence instead of control. Now, the difference between control and influence is that control is external, while influence is internally achieved. Control includes any external means by which you want to direct, I'll say, employee engagement. Influence, on the other hand, is relational. It emerges from within each individual within an environment. It's fostered through one-on-one interactions that are authentic and meaningful. So focus on fostering authentic leadership competencies as opposed to management skills. Rule 4, the devil's in the drill down. One of my greatest challenges as a labor management leader was helping the agency to understand that you might see the numbers on the top, but what you really have to do is drill down to those outliers. And sometimes you have to really drill down to the individuals who are taking these surveys. My agency couldn't understand why the internal numbers didn't result in their being ranked higher nationally as a great place to work. But they couldn't understand that the devil's in the drill down. It's tempting to ignore the outliers, but it's bad business. Now, the 5th rule is easy. Rule 5, ask. Don't have the manager ask. They might be the perceived problem. So what you want to do is ask in an environment that's safe up to the employee where they don't feel like they'll get any repercussion for being truthful. And sometimes you have to hire someone to come in and facilitate a listening session. They'll come in, they'll give you an emergent themes report, and then you give that to the employees and let them work with that and tell you how that needs to be changed.
Super information. We can't thank you enough. In conclusion, any closing thoughts, takeaways, or one last final tip for the listening audience today?
Absolutely. Remember, the only effective change is sustainable change. Sustainable change originates within each individual. It's not externally based, nor can it be legislated by rules and guidelines. When we move from managing human resources to valuing and influencing human beings, we will be on the path to sustainable cultural transformation.
Linda, where can listeners get more information about you and your coaching services, and how can they be in touch as well?
Oh, absolutely. just go to who'sapple.org, WHOSEAPPLE.org. You can contact me through there. You can see what we offer to organizations, etc., personal coaching services. Just contact me through who'sapple.org, Eric.
Well, Linda, we thank you for your time and continued success, and certainly look forward to a future conversation right here on Enterprise Radio.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.
And the pleasure is ours as well. We've been speaking with Linda F. Williams, the founder of Who's Apple Dynamic Coaching Services, a personal and professional life coaching service. And for more information, simply visit who'sapple.org. And this is Eric Dye, and you've been listening to Enterprise Radio, a part of EPN, the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. Pick up our iPhone or Android mobile app for your exclusive mobile listening convenience. And once again, we do thank you for tuning in.
Thanks again for listening to Enterprise Radio here on the Entrepreneur Podcast Network. To subscribe for future programming, simply visit epodcastnetwork.com.
This is the ePodcast Network.